Okay, so first carrier frequency offset. Let me switch on my. Okay, so as we already know that if the carrier if the carrier frequency of this these two LOs, let's say this LO is transmitting at FC, but this particular LO, instead of FC, it is FC plus delta F. Okay, then this delta F is actually the carrier frequency offset. Okay, so CFO arises due to Doppler shift. Yeah, so basically I will go in this flow for all the impairments that I will first show the block diagram. Then we will try to understand what is the source of that particular imperfection. Then what are the impacts of, let's say, what are the impacts of that particular imperfection or impairment. Then we will try to understand the signal model. Signal models means what is the input and output relationship. If my input is Xn, then how that Xn transforms because of the impairment presence. Then if possible, I will show you some demonstration using some MATLAB code or something. Then I have also included some algorithms for estimation and compensation. Okay, so I have included only those algorithms which are commonly known. Okay, yeah, we will see that as we go further. Okay, so the reason of CFO is the frequency difference in the local oscillators at Tx and Rx. So it could be due to Doppler shift, because we know that Doppler shift introduces some frequency shift, and also mismatch between local oscillator at Tx and Rx. So what are the impacts of CFO? It introduces some scaling. This part we will understand more when we actually look at the signal model. It also introduces some intercarrier interference. This problem is very severe. Okay, if the amount of intercarrier interference, or it is also commonly known as ICI, if this amount is increasing, then obviously it degrades the performance very severely. Then it introduces errors in channel estimation, and obviously it distorts the constellation. So this is important, like how the signal model looks. So if in the case of CFO, the transmitted and received signal can be written like this. In this case, xt is my transmitted signal and yt is the, I'm sorry, this is actually the transmitted signal. Okay, so in this case, xt is the baseband signal and yt is my upconverted signal. Then the received signal, we can write it like this, where this delta omega is actually representing the CFO. Okay, just interrupt me in between if you have any doubts in the equations. So here CFO is actually causing a phase shift in time domain, which reflects as frequency shift in frequency domain. So if we if you are aware with the basic FFT properties, then if this is my frequency domain signal xk, okay, in this case the CFO or the frequency shift, we can write it like this, where delta k, now I'm talking in FFT domain, this actually is my CFO impaired signal. Its equivalent time domain signal is like this. Okay, so this actually shows this actually is this statement. So CFO is actually causing a phase shift in time domain, which
Pulkit.
Yes.
Yeah, so what you intend to say is the y of t is the received signal and x dash of t is the estimate of the transmitted signal.
No. This x prime t is actually the received signal. Okay, so this is still when we are having the continuous time signal. So after sampling, I can write my received signal like this. Okay, and yes, one more thing, that I will not mix up multiple impairments. I will try to describe each impairment individually. So in this case, we are only assuming CFO presence, no other impairment. But yeah, ideally or practically in a system, there will be multiple impairments which are present at the same time or simultaneously. Okay, so this is actually the input-output relationship in, this is the received signal, this is the transmitted signal, and this one is the received signal. This will be the input-output relationship. Okay, and let's say if I try to draw the phase relationship with respect to time. So here time is n. So it will be a straight line, or basically a linear phase variation. Okay, and if and the slope of that linear phase shift or the linear phase line actually depends on the amount of the CFO. In this case, yeah, delta K is the normalized CFO. So by normalized CFO, we say that it is actually normalized by the sampling frequency. Okay, so if we basically, this is the important equation here to characterize the CFO and to understand the behavior of the CFO, that how the input and output are related. Okay, so now we will try to understand more about this, that we said previously that CFO actually introduces scaling and intercarrier interference. So let's see. Okay, so till this point we are just at the after the down converter. Now after down converter we actually goes for sampler. So yes, this is after ADC, and after that we take the FFT of the signal. Okay, so this is after taking the FFT. This is the basic FFT equation. Okay, I can write it like this because my X prime L is CFO impaired signal, and if I have to write in terms of XL, which is the actual ideal signal, this is the extra term because of the CFO. Okay, this is just some equations. Okay, so this above equation can also be written like this. So here I just what we did, that I have wrote XL as an IFFT. Okay, this is just for some simplification, because finally what we want, that we want X prime K, which is the received frequency domain signal, in terms of XK, which is the ideal signal or the transmitted signal without any CFO impairment. Okay, so to relate both these, we wrote XL in terms of XK using an IFFT expression. Okay, and just again solving these equations, this is how they look like. Yeah, I have written in here. Okay, so this is part 1 and this is part 2. Okay, I'll explain them you using very simple approach. What are those? So if I try to look them, let me find some space. How can I write them? So it looks like X prime K is equals to XK multiplied by some distortion term or some scaling term. I am writing it as D, because this particular summation is just a constant. Okay, because it is summation over n, so it will not depend on n, and there is no K term here, so it will also not depend on the frequency also. Okay, so that's why it is just some scaling. Plus, what about this term? This term will actually depend on K, and it is actually it also depends on some other frequency component. Yes, because here what L is actually representing, L is also representing the frequency. So for example, if K is equals to 0, so L will range from 0 to n minus 1. Okay, so actually this term is introducing, or this term is bringing other frequency component also into picture when we are only talking of frequency point K. So this is actually intercarrier interference. So I am writing it as this ICI below, which is specific to kth subcarrier. Okay, so what ICI is? So if you just look at this equation and try to visualize this, what this is doing, it is actually bringing other frequency components impact onto the kth frequency component. So that's why it is intercarrier interference, because other frequency component are interfering with K. That's why it's intercarrier interference. Okay, so this is how finally the impact of CFO boils down to this. D is also depending on the CFO term, but it is actually just one constant. But yeah, it is actually introducing scaling. So that's what we meant when we said that CFO introduced scaling and intercarrier interference. So here actually I have written this. So here D is distortion like scaling, and ICI is the intercarrier interference. Okay, any questions still here? Okay, now let's see the impact. So this is from some MATLAB simulation. Yeah, let's see. So here the blue dots are the transmitted signal. So this is just an OFDM signal with QPSK modulation. Okay, so let's see on the left plot first, this one. In this case, blue dots are the transmitted signal. So we can see that there are 4 blue dots, which obviously represents QPSK modulation. Now, I had introduced some normalized CFO equals to 0.1. Okay, what do we mean by normalized CFO? It is scaled by the sampling frequency. Okay, so visualize in that terms. Now, after CFO, we know that it is actually rotating the phase. So there are phase rotation in this. And now you may be wondering that, okay, it is rotating the phase, but why there are multiple points? There should be only 4 red dots. Does anyone have this similar question? There are only 4 transmitted symbols.
Yes, true, Pulkit. Why is it the case? Yeah, true.
Does anyone have answer? Or anyone can guess?
Distorted have the values nearby to the blue circle, but I'm not sure how this curvature kind of thing, and even in 0.2 it is getting below 0 line basically.
Okay, so first let me tell you, this curvature actually has multiple points. So here MATLAB has multiple plot points where, let's say, if there are these type of points, they join it. Okay, so it is just treat the red curvature as multiple points.
So this takes into account scaling also.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is everything. Oh, okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible now.
Okay.
I got disconnected.
Just a minute. Yeah, maybe now it's visible.
Yeah.
Okay. So the answer is, so in this case, we said that the phase shift was, let me go back. Yes. So in this case, yeah, we said that phase shift actually depends on the time duration, or basically the time instant. Okay, so that particular OFDM plot or that particular constellation plot was for multiple symbols. Okay, so as in one symbol there will be multiple samples. So as the sample duration increases, or let's say I have 1000 samples. So for first sample, the phase shift will be only 2 pi delta k by n. For the 100th sample, it will be 2 pi delta k by n into 100. It is actually, the phase shift depends on the sampling instant also, or the sample instant also. So that particular constellation plot, yeah, this particular constellation plot is for multiple samples. So that's why, based on where my sample is, the phase shift will be less or more. So that's why we can see that for blue point, there will be multiple replicas, or multiple, not replica, multiple instances of this with different phase shifts. Okay, while reading this particular plot, because in this case the CFO increases, so that's why the phase shift also increased. The maximum phase shift, or whatever you say. Does it become clear?
Yeah, Pulkit, can you repeat this? What that maximum phase shift?
Okay, so we know that the phase shift of different samples depends on delta k, depends on n. Fine. I have multiple samples in this particular simulation. So let's read it. If we only read this, so in this case, because we are seeing the curvature, so this is actually multiple samples. For first sample, the point will be like this. For second, it will be like this. Third, fourth, and so on. For let's assume there are 100 samples. So for 100, the phase shift will be maximum. Okay. So that's why we see there are multiple points here. And when we are increasing the amount of CFO, basically for the 100th point or the last sample which was here, the phase shift will actually be doubled. So that's why this point is actually going till here.
Okay, but in actual scenario, it will not be there. Maybe it will be near to blue, or what is your opinion basically?
That actually depends on the delta k value.
Okay.
I think, okay, I have not the practical.
Pulkit, so
Yes.
if you have, say, for example, in an OFDM symbol, right, you have 2048 time domain samples.
Mhm.
So, I mean, let us say you have a smaller bandwidth. Is it also a function of bandwidth? So you'll have a smaller point FFT. You may not have 2048.
Yes, yes.
So that curve there will look shorter if you are running through smaller number of samples. So if you have 2048, then obviously, or 4096, let us say, in the case of 5G,
Yeah.
and the 4095th sample, right, is going to look at the far end of that curve, opposite to the blue dot.
Okay, so let's understand it like this. Yes, that you are right. So 4095, like the last point of the FFT, will be the farthest point.
Yes,
That is
yes.
right. Yes, you are right. And also, if we talk in terms of 5G or a general OFDM system, the FFT size is also directly proportional to the sampling frequency. Okay, so larger the FFT size, larger the sampling frequency. In that case, let's say I'm assuming 1 kilohertz of CFO for 2048 size of FFT and 4096 size of FFT. In that case, the sampling frequency for 4096 case will be double. So delta K will also change in that case, because delta K is the normalized CFO. That is also one thing to remember.
So if I increase the subcarrier spacing, then we can still contain this.
Yes, to some extent. Yes, actually, you brought up a good point that when we are actually analyzing the impact of CFO, we should also look on the subcarrier spacing. So let me put up a point. For example, let's say so let's say the frequency CFO is 15 kilohertz. Here I am talking in terms of absolute frequency because I have written kilohertz. First case is subcarrier spacing is equals to 30 kilohertz, and second case is subcarrier spacing is equals to 60 kilohertz. Okay, so what do you think, in which case the impact is severe? Case 1 or case 2?
Impact will be severe in case 1 only, 30 kilohertz.
Yes,
Case one where
yeah,
the
you're
subcarrier
right.
spectrum is less.
Yeah, yes. So to your question or to your point that the impact will also be dependent on subcarrier spacing. So that's how we should look into it. So like
Yeah, so basically you're saying that even you take, I mean, somehow you have to bring in the coherence bandwidth also. So proportional to the coherence bandwidth, if your offset is less, much less.
Coherence bandwidth, I will not say coherence bandwidth. Why do you think it will be dependent on coherence bandwidth? Just want to know your
No,
opinion.
no. What I'm saying is the impact will be less severe if your carrier frequency offset is distorting much less compared to the coherence bandwidth. If it becomes more significant,
No, coherence bandwidth. Are you relating coherence bandwidth and subcarrier spacing?
well, in a way, yes, it has to be, right.
How?
It has to be.
Can you
That is-
explain?
yeah.
I
So
didn't.
correct. So basically, if you take the frequency domain, right,
Mhm.
then your subcarrier spacing, even if you take the LTE system, your 15 kilohertz spacing is kind of taking, say, 110 kilometers per hour and a certain amount of at that speed. Then what is the F max, right? So based on that, you will actually decide your tolerable subcarrier spacing, given that your ICI will not happen. Because finally you have to, each subcarrier has to reflect as a flat faded channel.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
But coherence bandwidth will come into picture. I mean, when there's a delay spread coming into it. I mean, we relate
No,
delay spread.
no.
The one which you are telling is nothing but Doppler spread, right? And
Yeah, I don't think coherence bandwidth will be a parameter to decide the CFO impact.
because the
Okay,
intention
maybe,
of the OFDM is to, I mean,
yes, that's true. That's true.
mitigate
Maybe
this
then, yeah, then
interference,
that
right?
is more correct. That may be more the coherence time, I think. Yeah, that is across then. Yeah, you're right.
So basically, we are actually making the slices of subcarriers. Basically, it's small
True.
subcarriers
True.
because to use it into, I mean, make each subcarrier as a flat faded channel, so that each
No,
packet is
understood. Yeah, understood. So basically, that sorry for the confusion, because
okay.
you have basically the frequency domain and the time domain. If you take the time domain as horizontal, frequency as vertical, right? So if there are changes across the very rapid fluctuations across the frequency domain, right, then your I mean, that means your channel is not steady, right?
Yes, correct.
Right. So if
So
your channel is not steady, if you even model it as a random process in that particular subcarrier spacing, let's say 15 kilohertz, if the channel is not steady, then you're obviously having the next subcarrier interfere with the current subcarrier. So that is, as you said, then that is going to have a more severe impact on the ISI, not the yeah. So that is basically delay spread, as you said. And the other one is coherence time, which is across the time domain. That is fluctuations across the time domain. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry for deviating. Yeah. So
That's fine. That's okay. It's good to have discussions. Like, we should not have any doubt. Fine. Let me proceed then. So yeah, now we understood why CFO is there and what are the signal model. Let's now understand more that what bad CFO can do. So it can hamper in channel estimation. I'll just try to put it very simply, not going into too much detail. That my received signal is looking something like this, because it is 2 pi delta k n by n. Okay, so let's assume that there are two DMRS symbol. For example, in 5G NR, let's say my DMRS symbol is presented symbol number 2. So NR has a provision of having up to 4 DMRS symbol in one slot. So let's say we have two DMRS symbol, 2 at 2 and 11. In that case, both DMRS symbol, let's say I'm writing it as Y1N, XN, and yeah, this particular explanation also depends on how are you actually estimating your channel. So because the received signal phase depends on this n, so it will be n2 in first case, and for the second case it will be like e to the j 2 pi delta k n 11 by n. Okay, what we do in channel estimation, we just divide it by the reference symbol, and in that case, because the phase of the channel estimates are different, and because multiple what we usually follow the practice, or what is the common practice, that if the multiple channel estimates are available, we used to average them to rule out any impact of any other distortion or noise. So because in this case, because the phases are different, so that's why it will produce, or it will actually give me a bad channel estimate. Okay, the only reason is because between two different symbols the phase is different. This is my symbol 2 and this is my symbol 11. Okay, now comes the important point, that how can I estimate CFO. Okay, so our good friend in this case is actually the cyclic prefix. What we do in cyclic prefix, that if this is the symbol of length n, we just take some tail and put it in the beginning. This is the CP. Fine. I think most of you are aware with the concept of CP. So the total length is actually becomes n plus L, where this is L. Let's write first the components of the cyclic prefix. So let me introduce, or let's write in terms of n only. This will be xn e to the j 2 pi delta k n by, correct me if I'm going wrong somewhere. Fine. Now let's also write, in this case my signal index, sorry, the time index n will run from 0, 1, 2 till n plus n. Okay, I'm writing -1 because I'm starting from 0. So the total number of sample, sorry, L plus
n plus L minus 1.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's write signal starting, which is starting from here. Should I write? Let's write. Okay. Sorry, it will be n plus n. It will be x n, because they will actually be same. So I'm writing xn here. Okay. This is just a copy of this. Yeah. So in this case, this particular signal is this copy. Because I'm utilizing the CP here. So it will be e to the minus j 2 pi delta k by n, and this is n plus n. Okay, n, this is just a same time index. If it is n here, n here, n plus n here, n plus n here. Now let's do y conjugate n into yn plus n, because they will be same. So I'm just writing mod of xn square. Okay, because why I wrote it like this, that assume xn is some, obviously xn will be a complex number, so I can write it as magnitude of xn multiply by some phase of xn. Okay, let it be theta. Then in other case, what will be the conjugate of xn? Magnitude of xn into e to the power minus j theta. When we did this multiplication, we are actually doing x conjugate n into xn. So it will be magnitude of xn square into e to the power 0, because these phases will cancel each other. So what only phase we will have is e to the minus j 2 pi delta k by n into n. Is it okay? Is it all right? Let's write it as phi. Okay. And we can actually, yeah, this will be dependent on, we can actually do it for 0 till L minus 1. So let's write it as n, phi n. This will be, sorry, let's write it as, okay, phi n is actually the okay, I am just saying that phi n is actually the angle of this term. Phi n is actually the angle of y conjugate n into yn plus n. Okay, then it will be 2 pi minus 2 pi delta k. Okay, so what it give me, delta k, I can find it as minus phi n by 2 pi. And yes, for more accuracy, I can run it from 0 to L minus 1, or like it depends on the implementation. We can write on some L by 2 length also, or total L length, depends on how accurate we need or how much efficient we need. Because if there can be some optimizations, if we run it from 0 to only for half number of samples for CP, it will give me results in lesser time. So yeah, it depends on the implementation. And after we find for, let's say, multiple number of samples, we can average it out. Okay, I think I did some mistake. No, this is fine. Okay, and that's how we can actually estimate the CP. Yes, this is only one technique of estimation of CP. Sorry, estimation of CFO. It is a very simple technique, and in literature there are multiple techniques. So here I will be just talking about this one. Any questions on this?
So, Pulkit, where are you taking the? Okay, so your first expression starts at the beginning of the CP, the first sample, and then the last sample is this one.
Is actually starting from this one.
Okay. So you are trying to measure. You're trying to measure the correlation of sample 1 with sample n plus n in terms of the phase.
Right. Yeah, we can say that.
How much? So that will give you how much it is shifted, because you're trying to derotate by that much.
We are actually, we are actually comparing their phase, or we are actually subtracting their phase, and the after subtraction, the amount of that phase actually is proportional to the CFO value, which is delta k here.
I mean, that looks like somewhat you're taking correlation, right? Xn square you got. Right. So first sample of the CP and last sample of the CP, right? That's what I'm understanding.
Yeah. It is actually similar to correlation. X1n into X2n. Yeah. Okay.
And this is pre-FFT.
This is pre-FFT. Yes. This is pre-FFT. Actually, it's important to do it pre-FFT because we would want most of our sync errors to be corrected before pre-FFT. Okay, so should I proceed if there are no more doubts?
And one more question, have yn equal to xn into ei power 2 pi and x of n plus n is e power minus I. So why did you done that way?
Can you please repeat your question? Sorry.
The first one is e power I, second one is e power minus I. Why it is like that? Because Euler is.
Okay.
It should
So
be
yes,
both the same. I think I missed that.
No. You are saying of this, right?
No. I mean, I think he is telling of y of n and y of n plus n.
Yeah.
So this is right? Oh, okay. Sorry. My bad.
Either both should be positive.
Sorry. This should be both plus. Sorry, this is just a
Because
typo.
because when it goes to y conjugate n, then it changes and then.
Sorry. This is just a typo.
Okay. So okay.
Yeah. Thanks for notifying this.
And of course, this is even before CP removal, because that is also.
Yes, this is before CP removal. Okay, so I'll proceed from here. So in case of compensation, because now we have estimated the CFO on the time domain signal looked something like this: e to the j2 phi delta k n by n. I can utilize this delta k and just multiply with the inverse of the phase. So the compensation is simple in this case. We can just multiply with this value. There is no complexity in compensation. Okay.